Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 9. No, I'm sorry, week 7.
Something like that. Somewhere around week 9 or 7.
Sorry, it's week 7.
Time
My,
isn't real.
uh, as mentioned in our Avatar episode, one of the quotes is, time is an illusion. So, there you
Yes,
go.
there you go. Speaking of Avatar, I have been um watching Korra still, and I'm on the kind of climax of the third season, and it's just so good. Everything about Zahir and his gang, they're
Yes.
so iconic.
Um,
Have you been watching anything good recently or reading anything?
No, I've been playing too much video games. I bought Crazy Rich Asians. I need to really sit down and not look at a screen and make myself read that.
I
Otherwise,
bought a couple books off
yeah.
of Thrift Books the other day. Love that website. Shout out to Thrift Books.
Oh shoot,
Um,
never heard of them.
it's like $4 books,
Oh,
just like used. It's really nice, and you get rewards when you buy enough. I think next time I'll have enough points for a free book, so I'm excited.
I will have to go on Thrift Books now.
Yeah,
Been
they don't
reading.
sponsor the show. We don't have any
No,
sponsors,
no.
but I do love Thrift Books.
I've been working really hard to try buy more secondhand stuff because that's more ethical
Yeah,
and better for the environment. So I will have to look into thrift books now. Thank you, Lily.
of course.
Um,
My pleasure.
um, in terms of like watching stuff, I've been watching Castlevania, some good old anime.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I know I love Castlevania. I haven't watched anything past the first season because I my brain jumps from one media to another like a
yeah.
horrible little flying squirrel.
Oh, that's a
Um,
nice comparison there.
but thank you. I've been watching though. I actually no, I not I have been watching. I watched it in 2 days because it's
It's
this
really
Netflix
short.
limited series that is 6 episodes long. And it's called The Mesh. No, wait, The Letter for the King, and it's really, really,
Oh,
really good.
the
It's a
one.
high fantasy, but it's also PG,
Mhm.
and it's bonkers good. Like they still have like violence and without being like super gory. And I'm saying that as someone who does love some some good gore. I watched Logan and I was like, oh yeah. But
Oh,
it's nice to see the high fantasy setting without that level of like nastiness and gore, and especially like it doesn't have like a lot of nudity, which is a thing in a lot of high fantasy media where it's just like
yeah.
just gratuitous all over the place nudity. So that it was really cool. It's more of like a children's geared like adventure story with magic, and I really really liked it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's on my list after you put that on your Snapchat story.
Yeah.
I like putting things on to watch while I play World of Warcraft
Oh,
because
nice.
World of Warcraft doesn't occupy enough of my brain, so I need to
Yeah,
overload it in some other sense.
yeah.
Um,
I completely understand.
but anyways, let's get right into our week 7 talk about The Seven Realms by Kristin Cashore,
Yeah,
and not
Kristen Cashore is how I'd say it, but I don't know if that's actually how it's said.
and it's not The Seven Realms by Cinda Williams, which
No, and I have also read that
I have
series.
too. We should talk about that sometime.
Yeah, we should. I actually love that series. I haven't read it in so long, but it's very good.
Yes.
Um, yes, but this is the Seven Realms series. It is a trilogy of 3 books that do not have the same main characters.
Oh.
They the first book is they take place in different times too, not necessarily like crazy far apart times, like anything like Brandon Sanderson, like, oh, like this takes place in like the modern age and this takes place in the future and this is in the past. It's not like that. It's like over the course of like maybe 50, 60 years.
Mhm.
You have the first book, which is focused on Lady Katza, who is an assassin, and a graced fighter, which we'll talk about graces later. That's the kind of basis of the magic system here.
Mhm.
Um, and then you have fire, which takes place like 30 years before the story that happens in Graceling. And it is about the title character, Fire, who is a monster,
Oh.
which is another concept that we will break into. And then we get into um, the last book, Bitter Blue, which is it happens after like a decade after the events of Graceling.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like this girl, Bitter Blue, rebuilding her kingdom after the death of her father. Um,
Right.
and it's just this series has something like special about it. It is very much like I've been trying for like a day to get the words in my head for how to describe it, but it's just
Mhm.
I can't do it. It's like it takes itself seriously, but is like reflexively like silly at the same time.
Mhm.
And it's very, very, very good. I cannot help but recommend this series to like everyone that I know. I mean, it's the best fantasy series that I mean, it's the best series that I've ever read, period. But
Oh, really? When did you
yeah,
read these books?
I started reading these books when I was in middle school, I think, in like
Yeah.
sixth grade. And there's a lot of things that I didn't get because it does like tackle some mature concepts, but not to the point where I couldn't really, really enjoy the story
Mhm.
because like it was so enjoyable to read as a kid. And then I reread it about a year ago, and I was like, oh my God, this is still bonkers good. It's even better reading it again.
Those are
And I
truly,
read the whole series again. I was like, oh man, like
yeah.
this is so good.
Those are
Um,
truly the best kind of series where the author takes into account of, subtly putting in more mature themes that a kid
yeah.
can slowly start recognizing. And then it brings in the nostalgia factor of going back and rereading it, as you said, and kind of garnering that sort of wisdom from the book that you may have not been able to do so
Mhm.
beforehand.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I feel that way about a lot of my favorite kind of media. Like, I feel like you can see that in Avatar. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can definitely see it in stuff like The Golden Compass. Like, it's definitely like it's like, oh, these are children's stories, but also,
Yes.
yeah.
It seems to
Um,
me that this series is not actually that very well known because whenever I try to find images of it,
yeah.
I can only find the book covers on Google Images. I went on Tumblr because usually Tumblr is like on top of it. They usually have a little fan base that
Even
makes
for
a lot of
niche
art.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Um, they didn't. They only had like three images. So unfortunately
Yeah.
today I could not make a collage of a massive amount of images, and I
Hey,
just
that's all right.
it's all right. And also the Cinda Williams also uses the series title The Seven Realms that seems to um
And that one's a
dominate.
little more popular.
Yeah, that's a lot more popular.
Yeah, a lot more popular.
Probably one of a more well-known like teen fiction fantasy selection that
Mhm.
people
Also,
grow up
these
on.
are the only books that Christian Cashore has written besides one other standalone book called Jane Unlimited, which is also one of my favorite books of all time. I will probably talk a little bit about that at the end.
Sure.
It's oh my gosh, it's Kristen Cashore just has a way of writing that is just like it makes me believe these things have actually happened,
Mhm.
you know?
I
Um,
I'll have to take your word for it. I did find a wiki, and
ooh,
I read the summary of the first book. I didn't read anything about the second or the third book, so I have a sort of
that's really weird.
premise of kind of what goes on. There's a little bit of familial Um, um,
Um,
set of discoveries that kind of went over my head, and I was like, okay, sure. Um, but let's go right into it. How would you describe the world of the Seven Realms?
it is very simplistic, but Kristin Cashore does a lot with it. Um, in the first book, you are introduced to the Seven Realms, which are I have to pull out my map. Sorry. You've got okay, so the names are very obvious. It's
Mm-hmm.
there's like Nander, which is the northmost country, Wester, which is the westmost country,
Oh my
Sunder,
god.
which is the southernmost one, Estil, which is the one in the east,
Sure.
Monzi, which is or Monsi. I say it Monzia in my head, but it's spelled like Monsea, and it's because it's separated from the rest by mountains and a sea.
I
Um,
see. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
And then Leonid, which is the island country off of the coast.
Yeah.
But you see what I mean.
Yeah, why
Midland is in the
honestly,
middle.
why think too hard about naming your regions and countries, you know?
Exactly. I mean, it gives you more room to do other stuff. Like the political relations in between the countries are pretty like not like crazy complicated. They're simplistic enough that I could understand them as a middle schooler.
Mhm.
Um, but they do have that going for them. There's like um you don't know a ton about a few of the different countries, but you know, like, oh, these are the important figures from there. Like, this is how they relate back to like the people in the main plot. The thing, okay, so Lady Katza is the niece of the king of the Midlands,
Right.
King Wanda. He sucks. He's the worst. He
Right.
does not treat his citizens right, and Katza is essentially like his attack dog because she's a graced fighter and she assassinates people for him and threatens them, and she doesn't like doing this, but she's working against him with like an underground like spy
Mhm.
society like under his nose. It's very very cool. And then even then in the second book you get introduced to the countries to the east past Monzia, which include Picia and the Dells. It's a little more, not like, maybe a little more provincial. I hate to use the word provincial, but
Not as fleshed out.
yeah, not as fleshed out. Definitely because you see most of them in Fire, and it is like a few decades before.
Mhm.
Um, but they also have a lot of political goings on that you get to see in the books, and it's just very very interesting to me, and it's like it's not too nastily complicated because a lot of times when I'm reading fantasy I really don't want to get into the nitty gritty of the politics.
Right.
I know some people like that. I'm not really one of those people. I like using politics as a plot device. It's nice to have it in the background to flesh out a world, but I really don't love it being like the driving force behind everything that happens.
Sure. And what would you say this fantasy series exemplifies? What sort of theme that caught your interest and love?
Definitely the concept of monstrousness and what that means. Because
Yeah.
in the first book, you have a character who is a killer and she is constantly at war with herself because she sees herself as a monster, um,
Mhm.
and a bad person is, and as someone who does not deserve love. And there's a lot of musings on like what makes a person a monster and what makes a monster able to become a person. And then you get into the second book where the main character is actually a quote unquote monster, what they call a monster in this world,
Mm-hmm.
um, which kind of goes into the magic system, but like her musings on what that means for her and like if she can ever, because she feels the same way, she feels like she can never be like a good person, that her nature will always take over. It's I love the concept of like of monstrousness
Yes.
and fighting the inner nature kind of thing. That's why I love werewolves so much.
No, yes. An unrelenting force from the moon, unable to keep yourself from
Yes.
changing. I was also thinking, going along with Katsa, that she would, I imagine, have a struggle identifying herself as her own autonomous person because um, she's used as a tool by the king,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. We can let's start talking about the magic system a little bit just because it is kind of integral to how this world works and it's necessary to see like how it functions.
Sure, sure, sure.
Um, so the basis is that people with heterochromia, two different colored eyes,
Right, I saw that. I
are
was like, that's so cool.
yeah, right. It's a cool marker. It's like you are born usually with the same colored eyes, and then over weeks or months, they can emerge as different colors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you start to develop a grace. It is essentially like a superpower that, or just like an ability, um, that can be from any range of things. It's like the things they talk about in the book, like the main character has the grace, initially what we think as killing. Like killing is her grace. She's super super good at it, inhumanly good. But
Mm-hmm.
you can also have the grace of like mind reading or being able to swim really fast, or being able to eat a whole cake without your stomach hurting. Like
Damn.
it can be anything, and
Right.
some are more desirable and some are not. And in certain countries, if you are graced, you will usually be conscripted in order to serve your ruler. Um, that's what happens in the Midlands. I think in Esther or Estill, my bad.
Yeah.
You like gracelings are free. A graceling is a person with a grace.
Right.
Um,
What percentage of like people are graced? Like, is it
it's not common.
okay?
Um,
Is it super
it's
super
also
rare or
it's rare, but it's not super rare. The probability that you'll know someone with a grace is pretty low, but the probability that you've probably heard of someone with a grace is, middling.
okay?
It's very much like people don't like gracelings. They're kind of shunned.
They're different, you know.
Yeah, they're different. You see someone with different colored eyes, and you're like, oh, like they could be a mind reader. Like,
Oh
get out
yeah,
of here.
exactly.
Um, so it's a little complicated for gracelings. They face certain prejudices.
That's
Kind of,
understandable.
yeah, yeah. It's seen as either like, ooh, like that's unnatural, or like, oh, you've been gifted by the gods. Like that's cool.
Right. It's similar to
Um,
our prior discussions on like magic, where, you know, if I lived in a world and I didn't have magic and there were other people around me who did have magic, I'd be pretty freaked out because, you know, that's a
yeah,
very powerful tool. Um,
exactly. Especially if like that person can like control your mind or something, because that
yes.
is what the main villain of the first book is, a king of one of the countries, and he is able to tell people anything and they will believe him. That is his whole
Yes.
thing. And he's like this sadistic, nasty man. and he'll do things like horrible things, and then he'll lie to people about it, and they'll believe exactly what he says.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is a terrifying concept, but it's a very fun concept for a villain.
Right. It really makes you hate him, you know? It's a
Yeah,
good foundation in making a
yeah.
villain.
You're like, oh, you can get away with anything. That's
Right.
that's fun.
That's fun. Yeah, let's stop that. So you
Stop that, please.
right. Okay. Well, you said there wasn't many politics in the series. Or does it? I know there are the games between kings or the main character in the kings.
Games?
Kings.
Oh yeah. Kings. There is a king of each country. There are certain it's just like you know that there are politics, but they're mostly going on in the background.
Mhm.
The most that you get is Katsa with the king's spy master, who are essentially working against him, right under his nose, in order to make the lives of the people in the Midlands better and just keep like his corrupt influence from being felt across
Right.
the kingdom. But you don't feel a lot of the politics.
Right.
At least not in this one, I don't think.
I recall in reading the summary about there's a prince that shows up, Prince Poe.
Oh yes, Prince Poe is the I think he's the youngest prince of Leonid, the island country.
Yeah.
They're pretty isolated. They don't really like to get involved with the affairs of the mainland countries.
Mhm.
Um, but yes, he comes along and he actually catches um Katsa on like one of her spy missions, breaking out a prisoner and taking him back to the castle, and he underestimates Katsa and she knocks him out.
We love that.
We do this. I love this series because it's very female driven. It's
Mhm.
very much like, but and it's cool because Katsa is not she's not really a girly girl, but that's not really seen as like something that's to be looked up to. It's just like that is the way she is, and she's
Mhm.
not like, ooh, I'm not like other girls. She's like, the world is stacked against women, and women should be taught how to keep themselves safe and defend themselves.
Right.
And I think that's very cool. And you do get the other two leads are more feminine. Um, so it's definitely
Yes.
not like yeah, feminine heroes. We love it.
With swords.
With swords, yeah, and bows and arrows and stuff.
I love it.
But
Oh my god.
yes, I do love that. And Poe gets involved because his grandfather was the prisoner that she rescued from the I think it was like a Wester prison. I have not read Graceling in a hot second, but
Okay.
I don't remember the details. But he gets involved because it is his grandfather, and he's like, yeah, like who put my grandfather in this prison? Like we need to figure out this mystery. And Katz is like, leave me alone. This is my business. And he's like, it's my business too. And so they're kind of they kind of are on each other's nerves. They don't really like each other.
And then they fall in love. Is that
And
what
then they
happened?
fall in love.
I couldn't have guessed.
And then twists happen, and Katza is feels betrayed by him, and a lot of stuff goes on. But
Mhm.
I would strongly urge you to just read it to know, because it's just so good. It's very well done.
Uh,
Um,
I again, you keep recommending me these fantastic things. I will have to add it on my list and actually put down my video games and complete something on this list.
Yay.
But I think one of the things that most I was like, whoa, that's actually pretty clever when I was reading like the plot summary and everything, is that
Mhm.
the evil villain, the one that has the grace power of, manipulating people,
Mm.
you don't know that he's like a graceling in a sense because he's missing an eye, so you can't
Yeah.
see the other colored eye.
Yes.
So I imagine you're reading this and you initially don't think anything of it because you think he's normal, and
Yeah.
people are just naturally swayed by him. But surprise, I thought that was really clever. Reading that.
Yeah. It's very, very, very cool. Also because the his colored eyes are one is gray and the other one is like blood red.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's like, ooh.
we got a real bad villain here.
Yeah. He has a red eye. He's bad.
He's bad. All vampires
Um,
with red eyes, bad.
vampires with red eyes are bad. We know that from Twilight.
Oh, shoot. No. Oh, that's right. I was gonna say, no, not the Cullens, but then I remembered they're vegetarians, so their eyes
Yes,
are golden.
gold. A beautiful
A
gold because they're
beautiful.
vegetarians.
Did you see that Stephanie Meyer is writing a new book?
Yeah,
Oh,
Midnight Sun. It's like it was promised to come out like way like years and
yeah,
years ago. Like she said she was writing it forever ago. When I saw that announcement, I was like, yo, what?
yeah. There's so many memes about Robert Pattinson becoming so depressed at hearing that he's gonna
Yeah,
be called back to film Midnight Sun.
which would be horrible.
It would be horrible. It would be a meme film at that point. Um,
Yeah. Um, I'm excited about that though, even to just see the hype about it.
a reunion of sorts.
The Twilight Renaissance is in full effect. I follow a lot of people who are
Yes.
back on that train, and it's very nice because okay, tangent. People are like being able to enjoy it while also seeing the things that are bad about it.
Yes.
Um, which is very nice. It's very refreshing.
Hmm.
They're like, yes, like this and this happens and we do not like that and we don't support it, but also it's fun, it's funny.
It is funny.
um
It's awkward, but the movie soundtrack is phenomenal.
it is
And
so good.
yes, there's a stark style difference going from Twilight to the rest of the movies. But I have to say,
Definitely.
New Moon is peak cinematography. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's very well done.
Yes.
Um, anyways, back to
Back to
Seven
it.
Realms. What would you say are some of your favorite parts that occur within this series or even this book?
Within the first book, my favorite part is probably in kind of the middle of the book where they have kind of figured out the mystery and they are um Katza and Prince Po are traveling through the forest together and just like figuring out things and falling in love for like the second time,
Mhm.
which is fun. Um, it's just all of that kind of arc is very nice.
Yeah,
Until everything goes to shit.
of
But
course. It's
yeah,
only
it's the
natural.
calm before the storm. But I mean, I can't even pick which book is my favorite because they're all so good in different ways. Like the love story in Fire is beautiful. Um,
Is that the last one?
it's all no, that's the second one.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
one that happens first in the
With
timeline.
the monster
With the
protagonist.
monster girl Fire.
Okay.
Um, it's also enemies to lovers. We love a
Oh, we
trope.
love.
But Yeah, oh god. But Bitter Blue is so fun because it's a lot of mystery and you find out a lot of things as it goes on. And it's the only one with illustrations. They're not it's just illustrations in between the different parts of the book. It's like four different illustrations.
Hmm.
But the maps are really beautiful. You get detailed maps of like what the
Yes,
inside of the castle looks like.
I did see some
And
maps.
yes, and I actually there's an illustration of the three bridges that are described in the book, and I actually did a giant cross stitch of one of the bridge illustrations of the winged bridge,
Oh, is that the
and
one that you did during sociology?
yeah, it is. I forgot I worked on that in that class.
I remember because I sat behind you and I was like enamored.
Hey,
And the
um,
professor was kind of enamored too. I noticed she kept like looking down, but she wasn't saying anything.
I love that. Actually, no, I respect her so much. So that feels nice.
Yeah, she was a good
Um,
professor. Uh,
for real. That was a good class. I didn't even remember that we had that together until you said that. That's kind of crazy. Um, oh, that feels like so long ago.
I know, right? That was last spring.
Oh my
Things
God.
were so different.
But when I finished that cross stitch piece, I posted a picture on my Instagram and I tagged the illustrator and the author, and it was like probably like 8 months later that the illustrator commented and he was like, I love this. Like, this is really cool. Like, the author
Really?
liked it too. And my, my head exploded.
Oh my
I
gosh,
just,
Lily.
it was the best thing to ever happen to me. Just because I worked so hard. Like, this was for reference for everybody else. This is something that I had been working on for probably 2 months every day for like 3 or 4 hours a day.
Mhm.
Like, a ridiculous amount. More than that if I could fit it in. So to have that be recognized by the illustrator who I admire so much. His style is very much like woodcut looking, which is something that I love.
Oh my god,
Um,
and difficult. Might
yeah,
add. Yes.
it's an absolutely beautiful style. I respect him so much. Ian Shoner. Um, he's older, definitely. Like I followed him back on Instagram, and he every picture that he posts gets like 24 likes or something, like ridiculously low. And I'm like, okay, King.
Okay,
Um,
King.
yeah, but that's really cool. I just wanted to share that because
Yeah,
it's
thank you.
so cool.
Oh my gosh.
But Bitter
Lily.
Blue is very like mysterious, and there's a lot of like cryptography. Like
Mhm.
it's super super cool. And you still have like just a little bit of a love story in there. Um, and it's a lot of like overcoming things that have happened in the past and remembering things, and
Right. Becoming
we
a better
love it.
person.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. And she is Bitter Blue is a queen also, so we do get a little bit more politics.
Right.
Um a little bit more complications.
Mhm.
Um but it's very very cool. It is I love these books so much. It's ridiculous. I'm gonna
I
cry.
I admire how much these books have a special place in your heart. And it's
They
very
really
cool.
do.
It's very cool that the illustrator noticed your art piece, and I'm sure they appreciate it as well. Again,
Right?
this series I imagine isn't too popular, and again, I haven't seen like a lot of art, so they're probably on the lookout, and they're like, I and your piece was amazing, by the way.
Well,
I wish
thanks.
everyone could see it, but um, very talented, Lily.
Thanks.
Many applause
We'll
for
put
Lily.
I'll send you the link for the the Instagram post, and you can put it in the description of this video if anybody wants to
Sure,
see it.
sure. Um, hate to lead to a more sadder part, but what part of these series did you perhaps not enjoy so much?
honestly, I can't say that I dislike anything about these
That's
books.
fair. There we go. Just like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of those things that these books have had such an impact on my life in the way I think about morality and like
Mhm.
self self-worth and introspection and like love and how it's because the love depicted in these books isn't like fairy tale love very much. It's like it's very like I've already said it's enemies to lovers a lot of the time. So
Right.
it's very like people learning to like each other and
S-
people developing relationships and it's so good.
Slowly putting down their boundaries that they've built up with their long years of life.
Exactly.
Yes. Um,
All the main characters in the series are just so guarded and I'm just like, "Oh,
you gotta be
I love
careful.
that."
I feel like that's a common theme in a lot of fantasy books in which there's usually a monarchy, you know.
Mhm.
Um, People don't really have much of a say, and so most people are very guarded and have many boundaries. So,
Definitely.
but I'm never tired of the trope of people slowly putting down their boundaries and
Absolutely.
learning to love
Yeah.
themselves, most of all. Keynote, learning to love yourself and then loving others.
Yeah.
We love that. Um,
Absolutely.
did the series at all feel like they had a slight teen fiction cringe factor in them, or
Absolutely not actually. Like I was thinking about that and I was considering and I was like they really don't.
right,
It's like you know how you read children's books sometimes and they're just so like sincere
right,
and honest
hmm
and like there's not really any like posturing or like trying to because sometimes I feel like some YA books are trying too hard. Um, and it really doesn't feel like these books are doing that. I mean, I can't think of any moments in these books where I'm like, oh, cringe, like
yeah,
ugh,
that
a certain way about it.
that's
And I'm
really
very
nice.
sensitive to that. I read a lot of books, and I'm very
Yes,
like, I can see it. It's on my radar. But these books, like, no, really at all for me.
that's good actually. I think it's really hard whenever you write that sort of style and such. It's hard to bypass the teen cringe sort of
It really is,
vibe.
yeah.
Um, but I'm glad that this series, it must be a really good series then. Putting it farther on my list of books to read.
Right. I don't actually, I'm trying to look if these are, I mean, I think they're young adult. I mean, the main characters are young adults, so it
Right.
makes sense.
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
So
know.
iconic characters. I know you mentioned the protagonist in the second book. You
Yes,
really enjoyed.
honestly, I think all of the main characters of these books are the most iconic. Katza, Fire, and Bitter Blue are just like
Mhm.
they're so cool and complex and just oh my god, and they're all like funny too, you know.
I imagine
Um,
they're all unique in their own way as well.
exactly, yeah. Like Katza is like the most guarded. Like she's snarky and she is very strong-willed and she
Mhm.
doesn't really she has like a weird sense of humor, like a very dry sense of humor that other people really don't get. Sometimes she's also like she's a pessimist, she's a cynic, like she's pretty dour.
Sure.
While still like constantly fighting to like make the world a better place, which is like, oh my god, I love you. Um where Fire is she's very gentle and she's very caring. Um and
Mhm.
she knows that everybody sees her a certain way because she is a monster. which oh, I have to explain the concept of monsters. Okay, so
Sure.
monsters are like, okay, think of it as if I've never played Pokemon, but if shiny Pokemon were like able to control your mind,
Okay.
just through like telepathic suggestion,
Okay.
and they wanted to eat you.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's nightmare Pokemon.
nightmare
That you just
Pokemon.
illustrated for me.
It's like so a monster version of a mountain lion might be fantastically colored, like a beautiful like sea blue or something, and
Mhm.
you would come across it and it would communicate with you and be like, oh, like you don't need to kill me, like we're
Mhm.
good, just come over here, and it would eat you alive and you would be happy about it because
Damn.
it would be controlling your mind.
Mhm.
And it's very very cool, and this goes across like all kind of realms of the animal kingdom. Like there are monster insects, there are monster birds, um
And what is
all
fire?
kinds of monster. She's a monster human. There are only
Ah.
like two, which were her and her father, who is dead by the beginning of the book. And they're very like not trusted
Mhm.
by people.
I'd imagine.
Yeah. Um, or like very, very heavily like desired by a lot of people.
Interesting.
Um, which is a cool dichotomy. Because if there's in this series, like there's a lot of stuff about like mental fortitude, like putting up mental walls against
Mhm.
like being manipulated, because there are ways that you can be manipulated both by people with graces and by monsters. So if
Mhm.
you have mental walls put up, you're safer against those like mental psychic threats.
Right.
And so people that usually have walls already will be like, "Oh my, get out of here. Like I hate you. Like I don't want you here. Like get out." But people that are a little like weaker in the mental walls will be like, "Oh my God, I want to I'm in love with you. You're the
Right.
most beautiful person I've ever seen."
I
Um
I think it's an interesting paradox in which you talk about, they're called monsters and everything, but
mhm.
the person that you're describing to me is very sweet and
Yeah,
graceful and kind, which it's a paradox.
it is. That's the whole kind of thing, is that she knows that she is like a quote unquote monster, and that like she's like, oh, like no one could ever love me, like
Mhm.
um but she really just wants to like make connections with people and like have friends and like have children, but she knows she can't have children because
No.
she's so selfless, because she doesn't want to put other monsters into the world, because her father was like a bad dude who used his powers for bad. um
My heart just
so
tore in
she's like, I
two.
could, yeah, she's oh my gosh, she's like the sweetest person in the world and the selfless person.
Mhm.
um but she is constantly like, she's internalized everything, um the prejudices around her and the way that people treat her.
Yeah.
But she gets a chance to like do good in the book, and it's so good. Oh, it's so good. Um, and then Bitter Blue is just like, she's young. She is very complicated though. She has had a lot. She's gone through a lot. Bitter Blue is the daughter of the king who could manipulate people's minds.
Mhm.
So she is essentially like, after his death, trying to like
Oh.
rebuild this kingdom that has been under kind of a spell for 35 years.
Mhm.
And she's trying to like rebuild this and find out like what happened and what reparations need to be made. And it's a very cool concept because there are so many different things you can do with the idea of manipulating people into believing you. You can be like, it's just
Right.
there's so many far-reaching consequences of it, um, and that she's learning about and trying to reconcile with, and trying to reconcile with her own identity as being the daughter of such like a horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really interesting, and they're all just so iconic. Um, yeah, yeah.
I'm
I get
sorry. I'm
it.
enjoying listening to you talk about this, so I haven't like added anything to
No,
it.
that's okay. Sorry, I've been babbling.
But this is the purpose of this podcast to
Yeah,
babble, bibble and babble, um,
Pibble and
babble bobble. Um,
oh,
oh, um, let's conclude with. Do you have any written down favorite quotes that have perhaps stuck with you while reading these series? This series.
I do, and I have it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes. Gosh, I think I have to look it up again. It's about like the nature of monstrousness, and
Uh huh.
um, it's something like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna do it wrong and I'll hate myself. Let me look it up really quick.
Okay. Um. What's up, everyone? This video is sponsored by nobody while Lily looks this up. Maybe we could share the podcast with Kristin Cashore, or
Oh my gosh, no, I would be so embarrassed.
that's okay.
The quote is, I just found it. Okay. When a monster stopped behaving like a monster, did it stop being a monster? Did it become something else? And I'm like, I love the idea.
Oh my god, wait. Okay, I comprehended it the first time you said it, but I need to comprehend it a second time. Can you say it one more time?
It does have the word monster in it like 3 times. When a monster stopped behaving like a monster, did it stop being a monster? Did it become something else?
Okay, got it.
So the idea of like inherently having an evil nature and acting against that nature, does that make you not evil? Which I think absolutely.
Right. We even
But
talked
like,
about this in sociology class where you were
yeah,
doing the cross stitch, where there was a study on people were being peer pressured to torture people. Um,
oh yeah, the Stanford prison experiment.
yes. And we talked about how okay, yeah, what they did was a bad thing, right? But that doesn't make
Yes,
them a bad person, you know?
right.
I guess this aligns with this quote where it's like, okay, the monster usually does monster things, right?
Hmm.
But it'll
But if
do
you
stuff.
don't behave that way,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. I like to think that we do create our own realities, and do we form ourselves, and we create ourselves with the actions that we take and the things that we say.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Um, it really also goes back to our discussion from The Witcher. Um,
yeah. Oh yes, that's why I love The Witcher so much, is because it deals with these concepts of monstrosity and what that means, and how you what what it means to be a monster, and what it means to be a monster who is good, who does
right.
good things.
Because,
Yeah.
Geralt goes around, he sometimes kills people, and they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm killing monsters.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. Um, I sincerely enjoy that we're able to pull from our previous discussions at this point at
Yes.
week 7 and apply them
Yeah.
to our current discussions.
It's nice.
It is very nice. I really enjoyed that quote though. That's one of
Same.
those quotes that you typically have to put the book down and you have to kind of internalize it a little bit and think about it.
Yeah.
I don't think people do that enough nowadays when they read books. I'm a speed reader. By all means, I am a speed reader. But whenever
Yeah.
yes, but whenever I hit like a line like that, I like put the book down and I'm like, "Oh my god."
Like, oh my god.
I have to think about that.
Yeah. But any closing remarks? Are you excited to read these books? I've definitely lent out the first one to a friend, but
You still have to lend me
oh, the other
so
series.
the
Yeah.
daughter of
Smoke and Bone.
Smoke and Bone. Yes.
Okay. Okay, I can
Um,
do that.
when you come back to Columbia or something like that.
Yes. I will be actually moving up next Saturday, so
Okay. Perfect. Um,
yes. I'll bring these ones with me anyhow. I'll just bring you all the books that I own.
perfect. And I'll um write down
Speed read.
little annotations on sticky
Oh, yes.
notes. Of course, that
I
would
would
be very
love.
cute. We could trade books and
Oh my gosh.
give them back to each other with our little annotations in them.
Yeah. I'll read The Witcher.
I have those on audiobook, so I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I could give you my username and password for my Audible. I wouldn't mind.
Perfect.
They actually read best, I think, on Audible because they're supposed to be read in a form of like a campfire story. That's what the Polish
Yes, that's
say.
exactly what I was thinking about. I was thinking like bar stories, like
Yes,
tavern
yes,
stories. Which
exactly.
is also, oh my gosh, that's a function in Bitter Blue too, is like the power of stories, and oh gosh, it's
Hell
so
yeah.
beautiful.
Well, have you read The Name of the Wind?
I have. I actually have it on my shelf over there.
Oh
I've
my
only read the
god.
first.
You've only read the first book?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yes, they also use the power of story because the story is
Yes. It's
told.
so cool.
Yes, the story is told by the protagonist who has left his life that he's talking to like a
Yeah.
yeah, really good
To
book.
like to a record keeper, like a
Yes,
lore master
a
kind of
lore
guy.
master kind of guy. You
Yeah.
need to read
No,
the second book. It's not as good as the first, I will admit, but
I've heard that. Yeah, I do love the kind of like magic school hijinks that go on in
yes,
the
yes.
first book, and I've heard that the second book doesn't have any of that,
No,
and
it
just
doesn't. He kind of goes off and joins some um a different sort of community that a lot of us would not exactly be familiar with.
okay, cool.
It's
We'll
a
have
lot.
to do an episode on that series as well,
Yes, it is
'cause I do love
phenomenal.
the naming magic. Oh my gosh, I just made a new character last night for D&D that is an onomancer, which is the naming magic school.
Oh, I have not
Yeah.
heard of that before,
It's like
actually.
unearthed arcana stuff. I love the playtest material. Thank you, Wizards of
In-
the Coast.
interesting. Okay. Um, well, thank you everyone for listening to our discussion about Kristin Cashore's Seven Realms. Um, what did you want to talk about next week, Lily?
It's your choice.
It's my here.
Your
Uh,
turn to battle.
let's see. Going back to my list that I sent a while ago, I want you to pick something that just
What? I
yeah.
gotta scroll up.
Here, I'm gonna try to copy paste it for you because I've already reached it.
Okay.
Oh wow, we've already done a lot of these.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me paste
While
it.
Clio is doing that, I will recommend you guys the other Kristin Cashore book. Oh, there's the list. Jane Unlimited, which is the idea is that it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book, but it's not. Like
Mhm.
the Kristin Cashore was thinking about doing that, and she kind of adapted it into this other thing that is essentially like the beginning of a story that then branches off into 5 different timelines.
Mhm.
or 5 different
Interesting.
universes, I guess. Um, because there's the concept of the multiverse is very present in this book, and there's like 5 different storylines that happen, and they're all different like genres kind of,
Mhm.
which is super cool. But it's one of the again, Kristen Cashore's writing is just so beautiful, and so like entrenching, and there's just so much about this book that is so cool.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, okay, next week, hmm, hmm. I mean, we could do Name of the Wind
Would you
next
like to
week.
do that? Even though you
It might
haven't
be
read the second book, maybe you should read the second book first before we go into
right.
that.
I know the third book isn't out yet, but
Yeah, he said it would be released in like 2016 or something, and
okay.
that was like 4 years ago. He's kind of on a
Yeah.
George R. R. Martin sort of mood. Uh,
We could
unfortunate.
do Game of Thrones or Harry Potter.
Sure. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
I have seen up to like season 3, and that
Okay.
was probably 6 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I could talk about Game of Thrones.
Okay. Hi.
That may spark another spout of hatred for the series, but that will be interesting to listen to.
I can talk about the conlang aspects because
Perfect.
yeah, the guy who made Dothraki and High Valyrian as like fully functioning languages wrote one of the texts for my conlang class that I took.
That is
Um,
honestly so cool. I can't get
yeah,
over that. Every time you talk about it, I'm like, oh my god. You know?
but it's a really good book, and he has like examples from the language, and so I know a little bit about like how the languages function, which is super cool. And like
Hmm.
what kind of vibe they they wanted for those languages and how he integrated that, and it's just all very cool. We'll talk
Yes.
about phonetics. You guys will be so excited.
Perfect. I'm already excited. I'm quaking, queen. Um, as the
I'm
kids say.
gonna cry. Um, okay, that is all for today. Next week we will be talking about Game of Thrones. Exciting.
Yes.
Um, we love you.
We love you. Everyone stay safe. I know America is closing off the quarantine and
Yep.
that's very intense for it's not intense for me, thankfully, because I am privileged enough to have good health, but to all of you that are compromised, stay safe. Um,
Mhm.
have you in my thoughts. Uh, gonna stay inside a little bit longer,
Yeah.
even though quarantine is deemed done. All right,
Yeah.
everyone, love you. Bye bye.
Bye.